everyone. We're really excited to have Meenakshi here with us today. Meenakshi is a solopreneur and she works as a mentor and for organizational building with various different startups in the Indian ecosystem. She's worked in the past with large organizations, growth stage startups, and also with early stage startups. In today's conversation, we're going to be talking about female leadership in the tech ecosystem, and we'll be covering a lot of questions about Meenakshi's experience over time.
You know, in general, Khushi, I've believed in that, and I work with women founders very closely, and I'm very fortunate to work with them. They're different. The way they approach things, the way their thought process is different, and I think they need that validation. So wherever they need that validation is where a lot of mentoring programs, helping them understand how to go about things really helps. So I think the combination of all these things really worked at.
No, definitely. I think mentorship plays a big role.
Yeah.
I think I was fortunate enough that, in my first job of my career at Bain, I was based in Boston, so I was in the head office. And because it was one of the largest offices and the head office, they had very intentionally over time built female leadership at every level, right? So I started out as a first year. My supervisor was in her third year at Bain, and my manager had been there for 7 or 8 years. And I was lucky enough that both my supervisor and my manager for the first year were women. And I think that having that helped me. They anticipated things in my growth that I wasn't aware of myself. Like, I remember this example in which I was probably like a good performer when I started out in my job, and I was very diligent about the research. But as a consultant, you're presenting insights to people 10 or 20 years older than you. And I remember most of the meeting rooms I was in were primarily white and primarily male dominated. All of them were 20 years older than me, right? So she picked this up. She gave me proactive feedback after working with me for a month and a half, saying that your work is very thorough, but you're not speaking up enough. And the reason that I can, say this is because that was me 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And she said, these are 2 tips in which you can speak up more. She said that try to speak in the first 5 minutes of the meeting, even if it's a question, because that will make you more comfortable to speak up, as the meeting progresses, and not second guess yourself as much, thinking, is this a good question, or, things like that. And the reason she could give me that advice is because she had been in my shoes.
Like you spoke about the meeting, I remember we had this was 10 years back, and we were in a client meeting. Like before the client meeting, the whole leadership team used to come together, and at that time I was the only woman in that leadership team, and someone before the meeting said, oh, you don't have to, like, you're the pretty face in the room. And and that person is a nice person and meant well, and it's just that, and I didn't know how to respond. And I think about it often that, do I even know how to respond today? Maybe not, but I think what happens is that you typically get frozen and you don't know what to do, and then when you do something, it's actually wrong. It's actually not something which you should do. But it was just the method of addressing it in the group, saying, okay, but what you feel inside is that your work is completely diminished to ground zero, and no one is taking you seriously, which troubles you. And I made conscious changes post that how people should take you seriously, how people should consider my work, the impact I make versus anything else, which matters. The way to address, if this happens with any of us, the way to address is that have a one-on-one with that person later and use the it statement that basically it is a workplace. Our job is not to look pretty, but our job is to do the work and create impact. And this is an expectation from any member of the leadership. That courage to have that conversation is what helps. And not say I or you, but that it statement, that situation.
Yeah, definitely. I've encountered that situation as a founder myself, right? I think that I really try to pay it forward now and help nurture female talent in the team. Like, I've noticed that, the female team members would say sorry a lot more, or even in their self-appraisals, for a team member who's equally talented as a male and a female, the female self-appraisal would probably be one rating lower. And I am able to call these things out because I've been there. So, just coaching my female team members, saying that, don't say sorry so many times, because men don't say it and you sound less confident. You don't have anything to be sorry about.
So it's very interesting and so valuable what you brought in, because I was talking to one of my co-founders, and she writes sorry very often in the emails.
Yeah.
And she was conscious of that she writes sorry very often. And she said, I just say sorry so often. Like you said, women say sorry so often. And but there is, I feel that be who you are, understand who you are. If that sorry comes from the space of compassion, comes from the space of empathy, not from lack of confidence, then it is okay. Fact is that more successful women, and I have gone through it, are not liked. And I have gone through that phase of not being liked to being liked. And so if you are liked, you feel guilty. If you are not liked, there is generally a problem. You want to be likable, right? That's not the way. So I think all in all, it's complex, but I feel that believing in yourself, having a support system, a strong support system, helping other women come up is critical. Like another example I'll give you is that often, if you're alone, the job is far more difficult. So have partners, have that, a cohort of at least 3-4 women. The moment I feel that you reach some magical number of 2-3, then it's easy to attract women.
It's so interesting you mentioned the point around self-awareness, because I think if I reflect back at my own journey over the last 2.5 years, being a founder, I think that's one of the biggest pieces that has come out, right? I think that I've noticed I've become more assertive over time, and because being assertive is traditionally a so-called masculine trait, I think that I tend to question that as well. And of course, there are feminine traits around empathy or longer-term relationship building, which, because my mom is the CEO, I've seen her just be herself, and over time she works with people she trusts, and she nurtures those relationships over time. And how do you think that plays out, balancing some of those slightly more traditional masculine traits with...
I honestly, Khushi, I would take out the masculine and feminine out of it. I feel that for different situations, one should operate differently. And hence, the moment we put that in our head that this is a masculine trait and I'm a woman, you can stay away from it. If you want to be, if you really, in some ways want to be yourself, and you'll say, no, I cannot be that. And then there are some who would say, no, I want to be that aggressive person because that's how the world is successful. My take on all this is, firstly, I think we should not label masculine, feminine. That's what I strongly believe in.
So what I'm hearing is, have the self-awareness to understand what are some of the strengths or what are some of the personality traits that really work for each founder, being natural to themselves, and then based on the situation, coming up with the qualities that are required to address that situation.
Like if you're in a war room situation, you have to be assertive. If you're in a situation which requires, someone's going through something, you need to have that compassion and wear it on your sleeve and feel it. You should be that.
Yeah.
So it will be lovely to hear, Khushi. If you can share your journey from being in a job to becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
And how did it go? What made it happen?
Definitely. So, honestly, I'm not the kind of person who likes to be thrown in the deep end.
Yes.
I like baby steps. So I think that I feel really grateful that I had the chance to work with Pushkar and I had the chance to work at Drip to help me make the transition from working at a large company like Bain with offices all over to working at a great growth stage startup like Drip. And I think that, because I was lucky enough to work directly with Pushkar for 2 years, even though Drip at that point had really sort of reached the growth stage and, the focus was on scaling, I still had the chance to work on some 0 to 1 initiatives with Pushkar. And it's funny, when I first started out with those initiatives, I made this big plan and I had timelines, I had milestones and all of that kind of stuff. And I remember Pushkar just heard it out. He said, sure, this sounds good, let's start. And 3-4 weeks in, things were not going according to plan. And I was getting pretty impatient. I was just like, we were supposed to close 4 customers by now. We were supposed to have this feedback. We were supposed to have a working prototype, but none of that has come up. And I think just having that opportunity to work with him and directly having that coaching from him that, with 0 to 1, things might not work as per the timeline, but you really just need to keep facing each challenge as it comes up and really hone those problem solving skills. I think that really helped me with the transition. So when I, became an entrepreneur myself, I could just think back to some of those moments and remind myself of some of those pieces, even though at my incentives, I'm the founder.
It's great because a lot of people want to make that shift, I feel.
Yeah.
And there is that inertia or the courage which stops them from doing it. I feel what really works, as you shared, is good problem-solving skills, tenacity, feeling that you are on the thing that you are on the driver's seat. I feel that anywhere helps in a startup. That you are on the driver's seat, you can make a difference, you can change the destiny of the company, especially some roles than the others, like chief of staff, like you were in that role. It made a lot of difference. I think that's a good ground to sort of then start on your own. And yeah, great journey.
Yeah.
Lots to come.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Great. So thank you so much, Meenakshi, for making the time. I think that, you've both sort of worked at large companies and made your way sort of through the ladder as a woman, and also now as a solopreneur are mentoring so many female founders and working to nurture female talent even in male-led organizations. So I think a lot of these tips, a lot of this guidance is really, really helpful.
No, I'm very grateful. I feel very lucky, fortunate to be in that position to be able to do something.